Let's get right into the hot topics of the day. The Sixers show up on home court, take a 15-point lead into the half, and cruise all the way through that game for a Game 6 winner. Joel Embiid, not really factoring much into the box score, but an amazing plus-minus. Sixers get the win. Sunday, Game 7, Raptors-Sixers.
Yeah, when you're plus 40 in the game, you had an impact on the floor. And while Embiid didn't put up the monster stats, certainly his presence energized the team. His defense was a difference maker in the third quarter when Toronto was trying to make their run. And frankly, it wasn't just Embiid. Ben Simmons was a monster last night, right from the get-go. The Ben Simmons that looked like an elite-level point guard. Jimmy Butler with the huge night last night. And, of course, Toronto didn't play well. They missed threes throughout the first half. They missed threes all game, but they fell behind missing threes. And now we got a fun Game 7 to talk about. We'll do that later in the show. But wire to wire for Sixer backers last night, the betting markets dead wrong on this one. All the money came for Toronto.
Hey, Teddy, how about the blowout last night? You're waiting to go in the fourth quarter. The Sixers go to the bench. The Raptors go to the bench. But we're still looking at that 211, 212 total. And 15 points get scored in the last two meaningless minutes there to push that game over the total. Always interesting as it goes down to the wire. The one thing I do want to ask you, Teddy, which I was impressed with last night, you knew the home crowd was going to juice up and energize the Philadelphia 76ers. They come out, they take the lead, but then Toronto makes that run and the crowd's getting a little bit antsy. It was nice to see the Sixers answer. Jimmy Butler was fantastic in that first half, giving him the 15-point lead, pushing it back over to Toronto, which we know the Sixers haven't had that big, win streak, so to speak, a win streak of one out of the last 15 or 16 games into Toronto. I'm going to be interesting to see about the energy level that the Sixers bring. And one game that you bet last week that if we can just see Joel Embiid engaged and healthy, could be a different Sixers team, right?
Look, Philly has been the better team in this series when Embiid's been able to produce. Doing it Game 7 on the road at a playoff-tested Raptors team, not going to be easier, Philadelphia. Make no mistake about it. But with a healthy Embiid, I think we'll be live. Again, we'll break this one down in just a few minutes right here on That Betting Show.
Doubleheader last night in the NBA, Teddy. Blazers start slow but finish fast. They force Game 7, number 2 on Sunday as they stave off elimination with a 119-108 win. Lillard and McCollum combined for 62 points. And how about getting a little bit of bench help from Rodney Hood in his 25? Nikola Jokic once again is dominant self, 29, 8, and 12. Game 7 set for Sunday. We don't have a time yet, or at least at the time I was punching up the script here, but it will take place on Sunday for Game 2 of 7, Teddy.
Yeah, it depends on whether the Warriors or the Rockets force a Game 7 tonight, and that'll determine if they have 3 Game 7s versus 2, and then they'll figure out the starting times. We'll know this after Game 6 tonight as to when this game's going to be on Sunday. All that being said, let's give the Blazers some credit. And we talked about it yesterday, how Denver had gone on the road and failed Game 6 in San Antonio. It was almost the same story here. This time it wasn't from the get-go. It was the second half when Lillard went nuts, but when Lillard and McCollum are both getting 30, the Nuggets are going to be in trouble. That was certainly the case last night. Worth noting, Damian Lillard has never played in a Game 7 before. Look at his first one. Of course, no one on the Nuggets has played a Game 7. That is a team where 4 of the 5 starters had never played a playoff game prior to this season.
Yeah, we're set up for that triple header. I hope it does take place. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But how about some more history, Teddy? The day before, a nice afternoon matinee in Pittsburgh showed us Joey Gallo with his 100th home run before 100th single. And how about this one? Albert Pujols in the afternoon smacks a 415-foot blast to left field. That gives him his 2,000th RBI. There's only 3 people in Major League Baseball that have done that, Hank Aaron and A-Rod. So some pretty good context behind that. But the interesting stuff took place with the guy who caught the ball, Teddy, that says, you know what? I just like the baseball. Just going to take it home. No big deal.
Yeah, and that's a Detroit guy right there. No question about it. That's the funny thing about this story is here's a ball that's worth something. All right. 2,000 RBI. Hey, you can give it to Pujols. He'll give you something for it. You can give it to MLB. They'll give you something for it. You can put it on eBay. They'll get no. I just want the ball, man. Get me out of the stadium. The guy bolts and never got the ball authenticated. That's a funny story about the mentality of my former home state.
No, no surprise also, Teddy, is it a gentleman who caught the ball is in law school. So maybe, the barter system didn't work well. He knew what a good deal was and said, you know what? I'm going to take my ball and go home here. No big deal. We'll find out to see if he gets it authentic, which I don't think you can even authenticate it anymore once it leaves the stadium. But Let's see if cooler heads prevail and he gives it back. What do you think, Teddy? Any chance that he gives it back, or is this going on his mantle or to his brother, who he said is a big Cardinals fan?
Jeez. I mean, again, when you're talking about your average Joe, just like a pro, it doesn't necessarily, it's not always about dollars. It's about, what do I feel is the right thing to do? What's the right thing for me? What this guy's going to do? I don't know what he's going to do with the ball. Feels like a mantelpiece one for me.
Teddy, what are we going to do here about the Chicago Bears? Yes, another edition here of the 2019 season team preview. We're going Chicago Bears. 16-1 to win the 2019 championship, 7-1 to win the NFC. And also the Bears team total is 9.5, which means you got to get the double digits and replicate what you did last year. Breakthrough last year, though, Teddy. I was a year behind schedule. I thought the Chicago Bears would come out, have a good season. Maybe Mitchell Trubisky would impress. And, maybe the following year they would really take a look at winning the division and maybe making a playoff run. Did it last year to 12-4 number with their 2 first picks this year in the draft, which they didn't have a first or a second rounder, went running back and also wide receiver to get some help. This defense is loaded, added Clinton-Dix. But are we going to see one of those things, Teddy? Because we see it a lot in football, and football is made for regression because they're going to tilt the schedule a little bit against you the better you do the year before. 12-4 this year, 9.5 as a team total. What can we look at from the Bears in 2019?
Well, we always start with the stats from last year. And again, I don't care about the mainstream stats. When you see something on ESPN, they're the number 1 rushing team, it's bullshit. Throw it away. It's about yards per play, yards per rush, yards per reception. It's about your team's quarterback rating versus your opponent's quarterback rating. Make sure you're paying attention to statistics that matter from a year ago to get your base power rating of the team going into the offseason. Last year, Bears outgained their opponents by 0.6 yards per play on every snap. They outgained their opponents by 0.3 yards per rush on every snap. QB rating, Trubisky and company, 95.4. Opposing teams just 72.9. No other team in the NFL held opposing quarterbacks to a QB rating of below 80, except for the Bears. So they literally lapped the league. And, of course, they were plus 12 in turnover margin. So the statistical profile last year, pretty darn good, except when you look at the one factor. And in my mind, this is the number 1 factor for the Chicago Bears in 2019. Last year, they faced the single easiest schedule in the NFL. Make no mistake about it. You look at the win totals, you look at how the teams did, the Bears had an easy schedule, start to finish. 2019, not so much. They're one of the 5 toughest schedules in the NFL based on 2019 win totals. Again, don't look at last year's record to get you how tough the schedule is. Look at this year's win totals. That will give you a much better predictive element to figure out how tough a team's schedule is. And based on this year's win totals, the Bears' schedule is downright brutal. The differential between last year and this year, by far the biggest in the NFL. So beating up on weaklings last year, this year, not going to be so easy. And, look, Clinton-Dix is a monster. Yeah, he has the potential to be a monster. But the defense certainly looks loaded. They lost Vic Fangio. Okay, Fangio is as good a defensive mind as there is, period, in the world. I mean, I don't know if he gets that credit, but we saw it in San Francisco. We saw it with Stanford. We saw it with Chicago, where defenses that look pretty good ended up being great. Well, now he's the Broncos head coach. And we like Chuck Pagano, but that's a loss. One last factor to talk about, and we have to talk about it. Kickers. How many games are the Bears going to lose this year because they missed a game-winning field goal? I'll put the over-under at 1.5, and I'm not betting under. You know it's happening. Bears fans know it's happening. There's already chaos in the kicking department. They haven't even started training camp yet. Yeah, you're not going to catch me with the Bears over ticket in my pocket for 2019. This is a team likely to go under their season win total.